Welcome to episode 67 of Marathon Talk, powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors. On this week's show, we've got a preview of this year's Boston Marathon. Can defending Boston Marathon champions Hellen Obiri and Cisse Lema repeat their success in Boylston Street?
And on the subject of Boston, we caught up with Meb Keflezighi, and he shares his insights on this historic course.
Finally, we'll hear from our listeners as they prepare to take on the famous race. All this and more on Marathon Talk.
Martin, what have you been up to since we last spoke?
In the last 2 weeks, Deena, loads. Absolutely loads. It's been super busy. Mostly, I've been gradually getting back into some running and biking and things like that. As I think you alluded to last week. When the clocks go forwards, for me, the clocks spring forwards, and I think I kind of spring into action. I sort of feel like that the bear who's like peeping out of the cave. You know, it's like, ooh, is it? Am I? And I feel like that's kind of just very seasonally motivated, Deena. So the sun's out and I'm running and kind of enjoying things again. Training's going on the up rather than on the down.
Right. So if you're a new listener, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But if you're an OG Marathon Talk listener, you know this about Martin. Every year, he just has a smile on his face about this time when the clocks spring forward, that you just kind of find yourself in the sunshine. I think you're definitely, I think I might have even said this last year, you're solar powered.
Yes, you're definitely down with the kids though. What does OG mean?
Original?
Oh, does it?
OG, yeah. Original.
Is that what it means? Like, because I know all the kids go like, if you're OG. So, yeah, OG. If you are an original Marathon Talk listener, you'll know that I'm grumpy in the winter. And
that the OG is for our older listeners, the older listeners that need to get in touch with their children or grandchildren. And for those of you millennials and Gen Xers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Thanks to my daughter for teaching me.
Yeah, you're full of it. Have you been doing much? Because you were also doing a fair amount of. How's that
I feel like we're both getting into our busy season, right? Just traveling. I'm going to be in Boston. You're going to be in London. We're kind of tag teaming as far as the spring marathons go. But our kids are off for spring break, which also means our house is really busy because friends from around the country are on spring break. So we've had this rotating guest bedroom, which has been really fun. But the highlight of my week was friends staying with us, and we hiked up to a vista. It's like a little less than a 2-mile hike up to this vista at night with a telescope and stargazed. It was the night where there was a planetary alignment. It was like Mars was next to the moon, and then a few other bright stars like
was
Pollux.
There was 7 planets in a row for a while, right?
Yeah. So we not that one, but there was another one where it was like Mars, the moon, and a few bright stars that were in line. And so we hiked up to this vista with a telescope, and we stargazed and drank hot cocoa. And then we sled the 2 miles downhill with sledding downhill. And it was so much fun. And it was like not maybe 8, 9 o'clock at night. It was just and I'm usually in bed at that time. But it was, we're just rallying for it. So the kids had something to do that evening, and it was so much fun. So that was the highlight of my last couple of weeks. A lot of busy.
Great.
So
and
great.
It's getting busier too, because you're off to Boston pretty soon. We said, it's Boston, then London, only a week between the two. You're very busy in Boston. I'm very busy in London, but you're going to Boston first.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just an exciting time, right? When we just start seeing the buzz on social media, and it seems like every podcast just has a Boston theme, and they're interviewing people along the way. We have a Boston Marathon champion that we're going to talk to in this episode. Someone who's been to Boston many times and learned how to master it. So a lot of wisdom coming from my good friend, Meb Kefelzighi.
And speaking of it, should we have a little preview?
Sounds great.
The 129th Boston Marathon, presented by Bank of America, will take place on the 21st of April this year. And as ever, it's pretty loaded all round. The fourth fastest man in history, Cisse Lemma, is back to defend his title. He won that last year. The 2022 and 2023 winner, Evans Chebet, will be his main challenger, along with John Courier, who won last year's Chicago Marathon, who is also towing the line in the men's elite.
On the women's side, defending champion Hellen Obiri returns. She's aiming for 3 in a row, the first woman since Fatima Roba in 1999 to achieve that feat. Competition will definitely be fierce as usual from Sharon Lokedi. She is the New York City Marathon champion from a few years ago. Hellen Obiri beat her by 8 seconds in just a thrilling race to the finish last year. Amani Bariso, who has a personal best of 2:14:58 from the Valencia Marathon in 2022, is currently the 5th fastest woman of all time. So Bariso should be up there as they make those 2 turns on Haverford and Boylston Street. Yalemzerf Yuhala of Ethiopia, who won the London Marathon in 2022, is also towing the line. Americans Kira D'Amato, Sarah Hall, and Des Linden will also be represented in what is going to be a stunning race to Back Bay. I mean, just every year I feel like the names are just on paper stunning, and it delivers once the race goes off.
Yeah, a common thing, Deena, between these two events, between these two fields, is returning champions, right? So, Boston's a point-to-point course, so it's not a loop course like in some marathons. It's a point-to-point course. And that's also notoriously undulating, right? So, is it advantageous to have run it before, to then know what you're doing? So when you come back in Boston, is it one of those, marathons that's great for somebody doing a marathon debut? Or do we see, and it looks like we might see, a pattern for people who have won it before being in with a good chance of winning it again? Just how important is knowledge of the Boston course?
Right. That's a great question, because I think like Eliud Kipchoge showed that, right? He could run really fast, but he didn't necessarily master the Boston course. So I think knowledge does come into play a lot. But when you look at these fields, both on the men's and women's sides, they're not just champions of major marathons. They have also run really fast. So that's where the equalizer kind of comes in. Kipchoge's more of like a tempo race kind of guy, not really a championship style fighter, like when the courses are a little more challenging, as is Boston, that, every single person that toes the line is going to have to overcome the challenges of the hills and the constant pounding that Boston seems to wear and tear on your legs. But these are fast runners, and they know how to win championship races, which is what makes this year's field really exciting.
But Boston, all of the majors are different, right? And the demands of the courses are different. The racing strategies for the elites, are different. And Boston kind of, if you have that knowledge of your own body and your own strengths in racing, then when you arrive in Boston, it's like, it strikes me, and I haven't run it, so I don't know, but it strikes me that the course is one to know when to push and when to hold back, and to get that wrong at your peril. Would I be right in that assumption?
100% correct. And I think that's why our guest on this episode will be so valuable to listen to, because for everybody towing the line, having that knowledge is really important, right? That the hills, the Newton Hills, the Heartbreak Hill comes at a critical time in the marathon, mile 20. I mean, that's when the marathon itself starts to really wear and tear on you regardless, no matter where in the world it's taking place, let alone a challenging course such as Boston. So playing it conservatively in the beginning stages of the race is super critical. But as soon as we say that, it seems like we just get this aggressive person that takes over and can run away with the race. Like Meb did that when he won back in 2014. He was able to just run away from the field. He kept looking over his shoulder, like, do I have enough time? And I was like in the sidelines going crazy. Like, don't look over your shoulder. That's a sign. It's supposed to be a sign of weakness. I learned that at the age of 11, right? You like, when you take charge of a race, you don't look back. You don't look over your shoulder. And he just kept looking at his shoulder, looking at his watch, like trying to do the math. Did I
he
go
must
too
be thinking,
early?
Are they coming? Are they coming? Are they coming? And it's a bit like that with the course now, isn't it? Because it's, you know, it's mastering the pressure and the demands of the course whilst also trying to execute your own race strategy and respond to what's going on around you, which makes it really, really interesting. Now, someone who's got a really good handle on that in Boston is Marcel Hug in the pro wheelchair division. Hug is the Abbott World Marathon Majors Series champion. He missed Tokyo, so he'll be making his season debut. And in doing so, he'll be aiming for his 8th win in Boston in the last 11 years. And a win on Patriots Day in Boston would bring him to yet another win closer to Ernst van Dijk's record of 10 Boston victories. In the women's field, all the big names are set to take part. Catherine De Bruyne will be making her debut in Boston and be aiming to complete the set of Abbott World Marathon Major wins.
I understand that there's also a chance for Catherine De Bruyne to set a course record. It would mean that she would become the first person ever to hold course records on all 6 major races at the same time. Talk about domination in her field.
God, that's unbelievable. I didn't know that. Like, that is unreal, isn't it? I wonder if that is something that, you know, really drives her, you know, to I wonder if she's aware of that. You know, she must be. I've not read anything about it, but she must be aware of it. And would she be the only person, you know, in history to have done that? That's remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, because you'd think if you have the world record and you have some of these course records, what keeps you going? What keeps you getting out there to continue to ask so much, demand so much of your body? And so I would assume that it does. Maybe we'll see her in Sydney so that she could have all 7 if she was able to do this in Boston. Could she go to Sydney later this year and get that seventh course record under her belt? Just truly just a field of her own when you look at how dominant she has been.
Now we love a stat, don't we? We do love a stat, and that's a great one that I didn't know. Good luck to Catherine De Bruyne to be becoming the course record holder on all 6 majors at the same time if she does it in Boston. To tell us a little bit more, as we're speaking about statistics, to tell us a little bit more, earlier this week I was looking at one of the 6-star finishers Facebook groups. There was a discussion going on that looked at current numbers. So ahead of Boston, we thought we'd finally get none other than the legend Statman Stu on the show to tell us some Boston Marathon 6-star statistics. So now on the show, we are joined by Statman Stu, here to reveal some exclusive figures for our 6-star finishers in Boston. But before we launch into the numbers themselves, Stu, just tell us a little bit. What is it you do?
Hey, Martin. So I look after all things related to results, rankings, and stars at Abbott World Marathon Majors. And that includes all of the data and the stats, which we regularly publish on our social media channels, and also all the bits and pieces we pass to you, Martin, for you to chat about with Deena on the pod too.
So you love a little bit of data and a little bit of insight, and there's nobody more qualified to speak to about this than Statman Stu. He genuinely knows everything there is to know about Abbott World Marathon Majors, finishes and numbers. So come on, Stu, let's dig into Boston. What have you got to tell us?
Okay, so first of all, let me just give everyone a quick overview. Currently, we have in the 6-star finisher family 20,118 runners, and they come from 134 countries around the globe, and they've got an average age of 50 years and 8 months when they finished their journey. And that journey itself, from first star to getting their 6th star, is currently at 8 years and 3 months.
So it's an average of about 8 years and an average kind of finish age of 50. For one petrifying moment, I was thinking 50 years to take to get my stars, but just an average of 50 years. That's clicking up as well, isn't it? Over 20,000 6-star finishers. Now, what about in Boston last year?
Okay, so in Boston last year, we had 1,052 athletes receive their 6-star medal. And in just over a week's time this year, we expect to have a whopping 1,585 runners set to receive their 6-star medal. So that's quite an increase this year.
And is there a gender split on that, Stu? Is there, is it more how does that work?
Yeah, that comprises of 572 females and 1,013 males. And overall, that breaks down as runners getting their first 6-star medal, 1,556. And then we're going to have 29 runners who'll be completing an additional round and adding another 6-star medal to their collection.
And there's 134 different countries represented around the world collecting their 6-star medal. What's the sort of split? Is there some countries that are more engaged than others? How does the nationalities work out?
Yeah, the USA has the most runners, but looking at the runners who'll be getting their 6-star medal in Boston this year, we've got runners from 83 different countries. And those top 3 nationalities are split down by the USA with 368, the UK with 142, and China with 68. And interestingly, normally the number of men versus women is higher for each nationality, but one country which regularly goes against that trend is the USA. And at Boston, they've got 193 females versus 175 men.
And is there any countries for the first time?
Yep, there is. There's just 2 new countries this time around. So we've got a runner from Sierra Leone in West Africa, and then also a first timer from St. Lucia in the Caribbean.
Now, a bit of a random one for you, Stu. Is it common that where the major is located is also the most common number or highest number of finishers? So in London, would we see the highest number of Abbott World Marathon Majors 6-star finishers coming from the UK?
Typically, it's actually the reverse. So you will normally find that a runner from that home nation will have took part in that race, first of all, in their marathon journey.
Yep.
So therefore, in Tokyo last month, we literally had a handful of Japanese runners get their 6-star medal at Tokyo because they'd ticked off Tokyo earlier on in the journey.
They've already done it. I get it. Now, come on. 6-star the 6-star tent is the place to be at the end of a major. It's where those runners achieving their 6-star get that glorious medal dropped ceremoniously around their necks. Anybody coming through the 6-star tent this year of note? I mean, every finisher's right of note, but anyone special?
Of course, everyone's important, but we do have none other than the legend of marathon running. That's Great Britain's very own Paula Radcliffe. She's won London, Chicago, and New York in the 2000s. She ran Tokyo last month for star number 5, and she's now on course to pick up her 6-star medal at Boston too. But Paula won't be the first female to pick up the 6-star medal on race day. That honour will go to Catherine de Bruyne, the elite wheelchair athlete from Switzerland. So this is a nice little stat for you. She won 5 gold medals at last year's Paralympics in Paris.
Wow.
And amazingly, that's from 400 metres on the track up to the marathon distance on the road. So that's a pretty decent spread of distances there for her. Not only that, she's also won all 5 of the other majors and holds the course records as well. So that really shows her dominance in the wheelchair athletes.
And we were
as well.
talking about this earlier in the show, and Catherine's got this amazing potential to hold all 6 majors course records if she achieves a sixth course record in Boston. That is some sweep.
Yeah, definitely. And then looking at some more stats, just digging around. So the oldest 6-star finisher on race day, they're going to be aged 80, and the youngest is just 23. And we'll actually have 3 runners who are celebrating their birthday as they run down Boston Street too. So that'll be some celebration for those guys as well.
Brilliant. Birthday runners, youngest runners, oldest runners. What about people that run together?
So I've had a little look into my stats cabinet, and I've found 30 couples who will be getting their 6-star medal in Boston. And 17 of those have given us an estimated finish time that suggests they'll be running together on race day. So that will be quite interesting. Have you ever raced with Liz at all?
That's what they tell you before the race, Stu. How many of those 17 couples end the race together? Oh, brilliant. Marathon running brings you together like nothing else. I have raced with Liz before, yes.
And how did that go?
That goes however Liz wants it to go, Stu. However Liz wants it to go is how it goes. Often with Liz, I was a pacemaker for some of her marathon runs, never quite able to keep up with her. The whole distance. I love I love it when people achieve medals together. So I don't know if this happens, Stu, but when they run together, when there's 17 couples that have got their estimated finish time together, when they cross the finish line, they cross that line together, they go to the Marathon Majors finish tent together, and you give them their medals together as well. Is that how it works? Yeah,
quite often we do it that way, but sometimes we'll actually let the man give the medal to the female, and then the female give the medal.
And vice versa, I hope. Yeah,
of
brilliant.
Course. Yeah. So that's always lots of tears, lots of emotions, definitely.
Yeah, great. Lots of hugs. And what about kind of geography around event start? Have we got people that are for this is like a real home achievement?
Yep. So we've got a couple of runners who I found on our system. So we've got one runner or one 6-star finisher, and they live just 1.3 miles away from the start line out in Hopkinton. So they literally will be able to roll out of bed, a nice little warm up down to the start line, and off they'll go. They'll have no stress in the morning, just a nice 20-minute jog down to the start.
Oh,
and then
joy.
And at the opposite end of the course, we've got one runner who lives literally just under a mile from their finish line on Boylston. So I imagine they'll have a post-race shuffle to a bar or two on the way home. And then
with their medal round their neck, I reckon.
Exactly.
That's great, isn't it? Get your 6-star medal and then walk home.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Definitely.
Right, we got some good luck messages.
Yep, finally a couple of bits. So good luck to our own runner support advisor, Harrison, who many of the guys will have worked or seen before. He's got a swift PR of 2:43, but he'll be pacing his friend round. And listen to this, at 2:50. So he's going to just soak up the atmosphere. And then also a shout out to our own Chief Operating Officer, Danny. He'll be running for star number 2, and hopefully he won't be too far behind Harrison either. And then one piece here for you, Martin. Any advice? We've got 67 runners who are running for their 5th star in Boston, and then 6 days later they'll be running in London. Anything you can tell them?
That's nice. I like that. I love the fact they've got 6 days to their 6-star.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're gonna step off the plane. They're gonna step onto the plane, having completed their 5th star in Boston. That's 6 days till your 6th star. What a brilliant story. I guess don't do too much. Get on the start line of London and get yourself round in the best condition possible by relaxing between Boston and London. Right, thanks, Stu. That's a ton of brilliant stats. So it's really interesting to see the numbers tick over. There's going to be some significant milestones on the way, and we will check in with you regularly to find out stats about each of the World Marathon Majors. Thanks so much for joining us.
Cheers, Martin.
In our Boston Marathon preview episode, what better guest to have on the show than 2014 Boston Marathon champion Meb Keflezighi. Meb knows what it takes to master a marathon course, as he's won both Boston and New York City, but also earned a silver medal in the Athens Olympic Games for Team USA. He's a good friend of mine. We'll call him Marathon Meb, and you're about to learn a lot from him. Meb, welcome to Marathon Talk.
Well, thank you, Deena, for having me. It's great to be with you and Marathon Talk, Marathon Meb. I guess it kind of goes a little similarities there.
There's a nice ring to that, isn't there?
Absolutely.
So, Meb, we're gonna open up this show by just going back to the beginning. Your family had an incredible journey from Eritrea to San Diego here in the United States. You graduated from UCLA and have flourished in your professional running career. If you were to look back over the span of years, what are some of those defining moments that kind of shaped your path as a runner?
Well, Deena, as you know, Eritrea is dear to my heart, and but the poverty and the difficulties there were very, very difficult times. But I'm one of the fortunate ones, my brothers and sisters, to be able to escape from that and be able to make a living and a life in the United States. But out of running, I remember, growing up there, my dad has to walk over 225 miles to save his life from Eritrea to Sudan. And we didn't see him for 5 years. It was really difficult times, but where there's a will, there's a way. And my dad and mom promised each other, if they make it to safe land, that he would reunite us. And he did that, even though it took 5 years. But I remember just running to my dad in Athens, Greece, where you won the bronze medal, where I won the silver medal. I was visualizing that moment when I knew we were training for the Athens Olympics. That was in my head all the time. And when I was 10 years old, I just remember running to my dad out of the plane and give him a hug. And I said, Baba. And then he goes, Merhawi, which Merhawi is my brother who's 4 years younger. And he says, no, I'm Meb. And then he just went to tears because he saw how, he expected me to be taller, stronger, and muscular, but that didn't happen. So kind of deteriorated that. And then my mom was like, don't worry about the size and height, just make sure all of them are here, because there were 6 of us that are flying for the first time on the plane, playing on the plane. I was so scared that I was going to fall out that little window, nervous and all those things. So, non-running related, that's what it stands for, but those are the opportunity. Sometimes the hardest part about running is the first step, and my dad took that step and we followed him, and running, the rest is history. And then I will expand, but after my first marathon, I went back to Eritrea in 2002 to see the first thing, how people were surviving for the first time. And we have so many things in the United States. We ran 26.2 miles for a job or for a hobby, but those people there, they were doing it for survival during, a night, using the moon as a light. And I'm here with my flashlight trying to see where I'm going. But that kind of reinvigorated it for me to be able to say, hey, you know what? The marathon was a temporary discomfort. Go back and try to do the best you can. And it was a temporary discomfort that I was going through in the marathon, but in Eritrea, people were just doing survival.
Right. And I feel like your 11 of you children have all kind of paid back the sacrifice that your parents have made, taking that journey, all successful in totally different avenues, from doctors and lawyers to agents and athletes, straight A students. What were some of those other opportunities along the way? Because there was definitely a learning curve coming to California and learning the language. What were some of those other opportunities, people that came into your life that kind of put your foot in the door to succeed in any of these different avenues that all of your siblings have?
That's an excellent question, Deena. I mean, I had no idea running was a sport. As you know, been in San Diego, you yourself participating at Foot Locker, cross country. We were not too far away from that park, half a mile away. I remember my brothers and I would dribble the soccer ball, head into the park, and we see people running. I'm pretty sure it was December. We got here on October 21st, 1987, and that December of 1987, we dribbled the soccer ball to go there, and we see people running. We're like, what are those people chasing? What are they running for? And they're crazy. And, eventually that was one of me that became the crazy one, because my parents expect to get an A in the class and an E as a citizenship. They always say, respect the teachers, respect the elders. And Coach Duke Lord in 7th grade PE class said, if you run hard, you're going to get an A or B. But if you mess around or goof around, you're going to get a D or F to the whole class. And I wanted that A, and I wanted that t-shirt that says Roosevelt Mile Club t-shirt. And I ran as hard as I could. And to his surprise and mine, I ended up running at 520 miles. That's when my God-given talent was discovered. And I said, and he immediately said, you're going to go to the Olympics. But as you alluded to, we didn't speak English. So I'm like, A, t-shirt, and that's all I care for. And that's what I was looking for. But he called the high school coach, Ed Ramos, and he says, my two oldest brothers, Futsum and Aklilu, ran. And he says, this little one is going to be really good. So keep an eye on him. And then eventually just basically went San Diego High and worked hard and be able to be lead by example. My oldest brother had a difficult Futsum because he got the most outstanding trophy for working hard at 4:30 a.m. trying to learn English to the dictionary. So all those you marathon runners, I do sympathize for getting up at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 30 in the morning to get your workout. And that's how I started my English. And that's why I think I have the utmost respect for all of you guys. But the rest, Deena, is my parents placed that trophy at the top of the TV before flat screen TV were invented and said, you know what, in America, hard work does pay off. Make sure you follow your brother's footsteps, and the rest is until that silver medal that I won. That was the most prominent trophy. And I do use that for my speaking engagements when I go to corporations because my brother gave me that trophy as a gift.
I didn't think I'd start crying so early, Meb.
No, Deena, you know my story really well. So it's,
I know.
I'm pretty sure we're, you've been part of that success yourself, been inspirational. But the Levy's, Rich Levy, and the Van Camps, we met you, I believe with Carlsbad or Arturo Barrios 10K, and you gave me your phone number to just say, hey, if you ever want to come to Colorado, here's my number, because you saw how I was driven. And so there were so many people welcoming, open the doors for us in the United States. The Andersons, who kind of told us how to assimilate in the United States, Pat and Mike Anderson. So I might run the race, but there's so many people that paved the road for me to make sure I was taken care of.
Right. And from that early 5:20 mile at Roosevelt High School to now mastering the marathon to gain your nickname, Marathon Meb. I guess we call you Boston Meb, Marathon Meb. As we are building up, a lot of our listeners are in their taper, maybe starting to feel a little anxious. Bring us back to that 2014 Boston Marathon win. And what was going through your head that week before the race? Like, what was obviously your physical training was under your belt. So what was that mental journey like 1 week before the race?
Deena, Mammoth is one of my favorite places to train and live at. And that's what I did my last 3 weeks or 4 weeks of training in Mammoth Lakes. What a beauty it is. And but visualizing is so important. And I give credit to Skip Scott, who was a great US miler, because he told me that to do visualization 2-3 weeks out or month out instead of the night before. So in the last 2 weeks, I was just mesmerized the beauty of Mammoth, and all the hard work was done. But I was waking up early enough to adapt to the Boston time in that regard. But, whenever I make the right on Hartford and left on Boston, whenever those coming out, whether it was evening run or on a regular run, I visualized those. And, when river, by Green Church Road, the River Road, Hot Creek Road. I remember if there was a car, I would visualize myself, follow that car. That's the media one and things like that. So I was just immersed in it, to be in the moment, to be able to visualize for the race that it's going to be. But the hay's in the barn, the work is done. Now I was trying to enjoy reading a little bit and study my competitors as I get closer to the race within the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it seemed like you were in a place of awe and gratitude, which means the hard work was put in, and you were feeling pretty good about your preparations. And it's always important to emphasize the physical work. I don't think there's anyone out there that has worked harder or more meticulously from sunup to sundown than you. But what is it about the mental tools that you relied on when the training was over? The visualization is definitely a good part of it, a big part of it. But I feel like with a week out, that seems to be, at least for me, when doubt when doubt seemed to creep in sometimes, like maybe I should have gotten in one more long run, or did I really perfect my hydration? And what if my competitors prepared better than me? What are some of your go-tos besides the visualization that you rely on to counter that doubt when the race is in front of you?
Deena, it was such a great honor to be your training partner. I remember as we Green Church Road, where we do our tempo, catch me if you can. I don't think I met anybody as hardworking as you have. So credits give to you for being a pioneer to be able to help to bring the U.S. resurgence back to where it is now. It wouldn't have been possible without you. Your leadership really is. So I remember just visualization to just say, work hard, be the best you can. I remember you give me advice as well. My first marathon, how am I supposed to go 26.2 miles when I could only do 15 miles at a tempo race? And just don't worry, your long run, your intervals is going to come together. So confidence comes in training, physical. Like I said, 90% is physical, 10% mental and preparation, getting up, getting it done. But on race day or the last 2 weeks, it switches over to 90% mental, 10% physically. If you're healthy, you've done the preparation, you go out there, execute, talk to your coaches, and be able to just, execute good plan. You don't want to do, there's many things we could ruin it. There's very few things that we can do in the last 2 weeks to get us better. So those is the confidence that we got to have. Yes. So I think be able to train and be able to be in the moment is important. But at the same time, just understand that even though you can do all the preparation, you can't control the weather. You can't control your competitors. But I remember saying in the last couple of weeks, if anybody outsmarts me or even somebody has worked harder than I have, being in that altitude, putting the mileage, getting up early, doing the ice bath, all the massage and therapy, and then they deserve to win. That's why I think 26.2 miles is the respect that we have for the distance, but the respect we have for our competitors to get the best out of their shape. And then if they happen to win, you know what? Not going to have excellent day every time, but if you can just be, Coach Larson, I always talk about, if we can be 1/3 of that field, we're going to do really well, because some people will psych themselves out. Some people are going to overdo it to be able to work too hard and get injured. So are we going to be the healthy ones and execute a good plan on race day? So if you can have that perception or confidence going into the race, you're going to do great.
Gosh, Meb, you seem so reasonable. And as you're mentioning your longtime coach, Bob Larson, I was thinking, man, we should have had him on this conversation too, because he's always a great color commentary in the storytelling. So many meals around the table with hearing the two of you go back and forth, pontificating on stories and really great times. What if you're looking at respecting the distance and respecting your competitors? How do you respect Boston, the course itself, and the race's history? Because it's a tough course.
It is a tough course. It's a very challenging course, and having done the course usually help. For those of you that have not done it, patience is a virtue, and Boston Marathon is a test of that. And if you can be just really calm and collective at the beginning and say, you know what, this feels fun, this feels easy, I'm going to hold back, you're going to do great. But if you just take, like I did my first time in 2006, you know what, I feel great, the narrow roads, the downhills, the group, the enthusiasm. On Marathon Monday, Pictures Day, people are out supporting, cheering you on. If you don't follow your strategy tight as possible, it can be a devastating course. And that's what I learned the hard way for me. I remember, Deena, in 2006, Ron Tabb, my good advisor in the past, has said, don't run faster than 450. And then I'm like, 444, 448, that's not too bad. And then I look at the halfway point, I was 102.45 or so, which was a world record pace at the time. I said, well, it's going to be an excellent, great PR day, or it's going to be a long day. Well, let me tell you, it was a long day. I came back 107 and plus, which is great run. But having that USA jersey, people support you, cheering for you, keeps you going. But your mind says go, but your body says no, because the Newton Hills, the Heartbreak Hills, it's a net downhill finish for Boston. But if your legs are not underneath of you, it doesn't matter if it's downhill. You already spent all your energy up to a Heartbreak Hill. So you got to conserve something. So for those of people that are doing first time, watch the course, study a little bit, and then just be patient. Life is about metaphor for marathon and patience. And the exam comes on April 21st this year into 2025.
Right. So you're saying that it's either going to be a PR day or a long day. I feel like I said that to myself when you took the lead in the Newton Hills in 2014 when you won. I'm like, he's either going to win this race or this is going to be a long fight to the finish, like a pretty epic battle. And you ended up winning. So I feel like at the moment you're questioning yourself, like a lot of us, it happens at the 20-mile mark, right? Like you're like, oh, I feel great. Or, oh my gosh, this is going to be a long last 10K. What gets you through when it is feeling rough? I mean, the marathon should feel taxing, like you're pushing the limits of every possibility. And so what do you tell yourself in that moment where it is just hurting so badly and you're questioning whether you can get to that finish line? What wills you forward?
Deena, any marathon you run, you question yourself no matter what. That's the 26.2 miles. You have to respect it, or it's going to give you some time that is going to keep you humble where you need to earn the respect again. But going to the 2014 Boston Marathon, was 2013 was devastating. What happened with the bombing, and we lost lives, and people changed their life forever because of lost limbs, and mentally, physically, and emotionally. But I remember Bonnie Ford from ESPN asked me if I was going to come back. So I set my goal in April 15, 2013, when we were at the Fairmont Copley. I said, I hope to be healthy enough to win it for the people. So my goal was at that day. And when Boston Strong saying or came out, I said, you know what? I'm going to be thrilled to be able to just do whatever I can to help the healing of the wounds. And for me was to just top 3 PR or go for a win. That was my mental going to the race. And I wrote the victim's name on my bib to draw inspiration, to carry them through. And I was kind of reluctant because of the sponsorships that we do. We're not supposed to tamper with it. Sponsorships, I was nervous, but I want to write it big. But then I'm like, no, I don't want to make enemies. So I decided to write with a Sharpie to be what is visible, and went viral. But the last thing I told my coach, Bob Larson, at the time is like, we talked before starting leaving Hopkinton. He says, we can run to 07, you can run to 08. We always believe that. I said, Coach, that would have been maybe 3 years, 5 years ago. But right now, don't worry. You're not going to see me into the last 5K of the race. But the emotion of the crowd takes you. And I remember just at 5 miles, I took the lead. And because the Kenyans, Ethiopian trying to slow down, if I'm going to win top 3 or run a personal best, I need to go. And then I risk it. You have to take a risk, and you will definitely feel uncomfortable going through that race. You're going to question yourself. Did I go too hard? Did I make the right move? What are people thinking on TV? He's just doing the camera show or whatnot. But I don't remember going to the halfway point because I was so focused on the race and the crowd, people doing the waves. And, Joseph Boyd, who was with Mammoth Track Club, I remember asking him, did you remember what a halfway point was? He's like, no, I don't. I'm like, well, Boston is about championship anyway, so just stay focused. But to your point, it is not about the time. It's not about what Splisso was, just conquer. And I did, having a smartwatch does help because it helps you accountable to what you're doing. You're not doing abnormal than what you have done, but those people that let me have some space paid for it. And I said, you know what? The crowd is going to get me through. The victim is going to carry me through. I prayed a lot when it goes really, really hard. You just rely on yourself. Take it, as your book says, be in the moment, your head. You have to be able to just count every mile, go where you are, and then hopefully make it to the next mile, and then things will change.
Yeah, running the mile that you're in is good advice, and it really speaks to you can have a goal. For you, it was winning the Boston Marathon and ending that drought. But whether it's running fast or winning your age group or running a personal best, it's one thing to have that goal, to have that deeper purpose. For you, it was running on behalf of the victims and on behalf of the sport in general, on behalf of the Boston Marathon. That's a pretty heavy toll, pretty heavy burden to be running with. But for you, it powered your purpose. Are there any other, and it's a prime example of that, are there any other examples you have in running where it wasn't just about the goal, it was about something bigger than you, bigger than that performance that was a driver in that performance?
It couldn't have picked it more than the 2014 Boston Marathon. There was 36,000 people who want to show resilience, people who want to be able to say, you know what, you're not going to take our freedom away. So there was 36 people, including myself, to just be able to say, make a statement. We're going to go out there on Marathon Monday, show what the war is all about. I was just fortunate enough to be able to be in the lead, but it was through mercy.
What a statement you made.
Yeah, through mercy of God that, something told me internally, go for it now. And was it risky? Absolutely. Was it, but I think you hear the crowd, you hear people telling you about it. Deena, as we have interacted with people, they tell us whether our medals or you win in London or Chicago, you hear that thing and you want to be able to represent them to the best you can. So that day I just said, you know what, 36,000 people want to do something different. Let's go for it. And, fortunately enough for me, I was taking to soak it all in, but going to the last 2-3 miles, I was getting nervous. Did I go too early? Is mental capacity, the 90% mental is now, should I slow down? Should I wait for Boylston? But as runners, we know that what the advantage and disadvantage are when people catch up to us. So we just simulate someone as much as you can. It doesn't matter if you're on the front of the pack or the middle of the pack or the back of the pack. You're trying to get there to the best you are capable of. That's what I think Run to Win is, to get the best out of yourself and push the limits. And some of us were fortunate enough to do this as a living or make it seamless or effortless, but we know it hurts every step, every mile, but we're there to enjoy it as much as we can and help inspire other people to do that. And what a great an honor it was to be able to pull the victory for all of us, including the 36,000 people that were chanting USA, USA. And I hear that story to this day, Deena. People were, I was on mile 10, I was Heartbreak Hill, I was on mile 7. I was not having the race of my life, but hearing that, it just uplifted people. And I'm just blessed to be able to have that victory for all of us.
Yeah, I think I asked you after the race, did you hear me on Heartbreak Hill? But I was whispering it to you because I think I busted a vocal cord screaming so loudly. You were like, sorry, I didn't hear you, because I was like amongst the roar of people cheering you on. You talked about Run to Win. That's kind of your tagline. It's how you sign your autographs and then you explain it's not just about winning, it's about your personal victories. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. And you continue to walk the walk or run the run. But as I see you at races and there's crowds around you begging for your attention, speak to the community. Like, running seems like a solo sport, an individual sport, but can you speak to how the community as a whole has impacted your journey?
The camaraderie of running is amazing. I mean, every person that I have met, it was education or running, but most of my friends are through the sport of running. From that 7th grade PE class, which in fact, I sent a text to Coach DeClore yesterday about asking about what that t-shirt looked like, and sometimes my siblings, or to the teammates, classmates, and all those people that helps you be the best version of yourself. Yeah, I mean, I feel very, very fortunate that how unifying running is. Whether we are anywhere in the city, whether it's a 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon, it's a universal language that to say, you know what, we're going to get from point A to point B, no matter what your race is, what your gender is, what your age is. You just go out there to get the best out of yourself. And I think, as Deena training in Mammoth and in San Diego, to be able to just have, dinners together, to be able to just have after a run together, and it's beautiful. And I think that's what the everyday athlete does too. They just say, hey, let's get together for a long run, or let's get a workout at 6 o'clock in the morning workout before going to work. That brings the tight niche of the community and how unified it is. And, I remember calling you, hey, Deena, can you take me to the hospital? My battery died, or things like that. It's just, you can rely on runners a lot more than you can, because they're kind, perseverance, and they want to help you achieve your goals.
Right. You mentioned Steve Scott and Bob Larson, some of your biggest influences in your life. Who else has inspired you in the running space, inspired your performances at a young age?
Early on, the Van Camps took me under their wings. Gail Van Camp, Dr. Steve Van Camp. And in fact, the Run to Win was set up in their kitchen. And let's say I was in high school. I think I was sophomore or so. If you go to the state meet and you finish 5th, but you ran your fastest time ever, did you win? I said, well, I didn't win, but if I ran my best time ever, then I got to be content with that. 4 guys were better than me. I'm okay with it. And so they were there, really helped me out, even with my speaking English or to mock the media and things like that. They were very instrumental. I feel, like you said, it might be a solo sport when we run, but there's so many behind the scenes to help us be the best we can be, from, coaches, therapists, people who you're along on your side, things that I do now, even as an ambassador, I couldn't do without your Danos or Marhawi, brother and manager. There's so many other things, people who want to help you excel, whether it's working with the foundation, people want to generous enough to just say, hey, we want to help your cause. There's so many people that are kind enough to say, share their wisdom, wealth, or knowledge to help you get your dreams. And sometimes you go all the way to Boston or Europe and things like that. I can't let my teammates or my friends or family disappoint. So you go that extra, lift from the bottom of your heart or the bottom of your stomach to say, you know what, I gotta represent us.
And it's so wonderful that you always feel that you're taking people on this journey with you. You are retired from professional running, but you travel more than ever. You're still jumping in races for charity, for the Meb Foundation, for the ambassador work that you do for so many races around the world. So what inspires you now? What's the inspiration behind staying so involved in the sport?
Winning the Boston Marathon in 2014, I was kind of stamped on on this earth, my purpose on this earth, to inspire and impact people through the sport of running. Close to 39 years old, 2 weeks shy of that, I thought my running was behind me. That was going to be the last time I was going to do Boston. But by winning that race, kind of said, hey, you know what, you got more, and you want to be able to help people achieve others. And I do coach people online through the Run Dot to help them achieve, doesn't matter, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, get to that finish line is important to all of them. But to work also with the Meb Foundation, maintaining excellent balance through health, education, and fitness for youth is a great time. In fact, I was there yesterday here in Tampa to help with the Girls on the Run, start a program here locally. So it's always busy until I put my head on the pillow. There's always something to do. And fortunate enough to have 3 beautiful daughters, so I to help them the best that I can as well. Even though I travel immensely, yes, I'm not here all the time, but I do understand, try to help them, groom them to the best they can be and be in sports and academics and things like that. So yeah, I think it's wonderful to be able to just share knowledge that we have accumulated over the years with the people that are close to us or people who look up to us.
Meb, you've offered us decades of inspiration. What is the best way for runners to follow your journey? Social media handles, websites?
Marathonmeb.com is my website. Mebfoundation.org is if you'd like to help with the foundation. @RunMeb is my handle on Twitter and then also Instagram. But yeah, it's we are fortunate enough to be in position where we are to impact others. As you know, Deena, it's a big responsibility, a big to handle. But at the same time, we feel very fortunate to lead others by example and try to be. We're not perfect by any means, but try to be on a pedestal to help others be, whether it's from simple words of advice or to tell them about their journey. Say, hang in there, you can do it because we have overcome adversities. And then especially you, I gotta say, that when you were running the world cross country, in talk about toughness, when you have that B incident, why didn't you tell us about that? Things don't go perfect in your way, but you persevere to be able to just go into that. I know I don't want to put you on that spot, but tell us about that moment because life is not easy, but it's all about hard work.
We've all dealt with injury. Some of us have gotten a bee in our mouth that stung the back of our throats and had us pass out on the cross country course only to get up and run to that finish line. But whatever it is, I feel like this community of runners, like we're there to inspire, but we gain inspiration every weekend we're out there. And with Boston coming up, I'm really looking forward to, I know we go to inspire, but I come home on that flight and I'm just fired up, ready to be a better version of myself, thanks to what I witness when I'm in Boston. Where can people find you in Boston? Are there public events? Will you be posting it on your social media handles on what you're going to be doing in Boston and how we can engage with you?
It's going to be busy and interesting week in Boston. I'm actually getting there on Tuesday before the Monday race. I will be at the New Balance. They're having a relay for the different charity foundations. So on Saturday, I'll be there encouraging people. But there's some that are not open to the public, but it's going to be one-on-one or private functions. But you'll find me in Boston. I'll be there for almost a whole week.
Yes. Be on the lookout, everyone. It'll be the guy that has a swarm of people around him as he tries to make his way down the streets of Boston to his next event. Meb, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. We'll see you in Boston.
Sounds great. You will see me running the 5K for the first time as well. So looking forward to it.
Oh, maybe I'll jump in and tease you. Catch me if you can.
Good old days.
Thanks, Meb.
No problem.
That's great. Brilliant interview. Meb is always such a superstar, but informative and humble and fun guest. Such a great guest. What was he like immediately after that interview, Deena?
Yeah, we had such a great conversation. Meb and I have been friends since we made our first Olympic team together in the year 2000. And, I stopped recording, and we're doing this new thing where we're asking our guests 7 bullet, like really rapid fire questions to represent the 7 stars in the Abbott World Marathon Major Series. And so I said, I've often been asked the question the question I asked is, if you could run with any athlete in the world, who would it be? And I said, that question really reminds me of a general question I've been asked before. If you could invite anyone to sit at your table in history to just share conversation at your dinner table, who would it be? And I said, mine are Maya Angelou and Barack Obama. And he said, well, actually, Deena, I've had dinner with Barack Obama. And I'm like, what? Former US president. He was president at the time. And Meb's talking about how him and his wife, Jordanos, were sitting at a table with former President Jimmy Carter, current President Barack Obama, their wives. I was like, wait, this is a real thing? Like, you ate dinner with my dream guest? So he just said it was like this banter back and forth. He made a comment about Meb being the fastest man in the room at his congressional dinner, like just so like otherworldly, right? Like, this just happens to Meb. He's sitting at a table with the current president of the United States, former presidents, their wives.
Yeah, isn't that
and
amazing?
So my thing was like, why did I stop recording? You should be recording until you hang up, right?
Yeah.
So mad at myself.
It's phenomenal when, and I wonder, because like you see, and Meb since 2000, and of course, both for you and Meb, running brought you both these incredible experiences. If we put aside the times and, you put aside the medals, right? And you say, well, actually, that's only one part of my running story. Those are the performance kind of, there's the silverware, they're your palmares. But what goes with that is the incredible opportunity that running brought, Meb and you, when you achieve the levels that you guys have, you find yourself in places and with people that you thought you would never be, and it's as much about those experiences as it is for the experiences of the running that you had. Have you ever had something like that?
Well, I mean, it just makes me think, of course, I feel like all my memories aren't the medals and the wins and the times or records. It's like the dinner I had the night before with a couple of my competitors who are
with Elvis.
Who are friends. Yeah, not with Elvis. No, but I you know what I mean? I was able to introduce President Bill Clinton at a press conference before. And so you do find yourself in those positions, but it really goes to the bigger picture of what this sport is. And we know that from our Gold Club Masterclass, our group that we keep in touch with on a daily basis over WhatsApp, and how when we're going to these major marathons, they're not only talking about their goals and how to hit them, but like feeding deer, swimming in hot springs, doing these things, their itineraries as they go to all these places are quite wild. And those are the things that stand out. I don't remember if they hit their times or not, and they probably don't either. Maybe they do. But I'm remembering like, wow, they really made this a full experience, not just about the run itself. And I just think that the community is beautiful in that regard, that we could use it as a vehicle, but the real story is what we create around our running that really creates a wholeness about why we are so passionate about what we do.
Now, earlier this week, we asked a question on our Instagram page asking our listeners to predict their Boston Marathon finish times. It's a little game we're going to play called Finish Time Forecast. I need a little, maybe you could sing us a little jingle for that. The question was, that'll do, Finish Time Forecast. The question was for Marathon Talk listeners to predict their Boston finish time. And after the race next week, Statman Stu, who we heard from earlier in the show, will compare predictions with actual times, and we'll give a super special Abbott World Marathon Majors prize to the person who got the closest actual finish to their predicted finish time. Now, we're recording our next show straight after the Boston race, so we'll go with the unofficial finish time. But anyway, we had a load of submissions. So here we go. Here are the predicted finish times. On Instagram, Janet Bolt aiming to run 3:35:10. On the Strava group, Tristan De Silva is looking for a PB with a time of 2:40:00.
On Facebook, Louis Melendez hopes to finish in 5:57:57. How's that? Definitely under 6 hours, so good job, Louis. Another from Facebook, Elisa Penozzi. She's going for 4:26 flat. From the Strava Club, David McLean says his training hasn't gone very well, but he's going to take a stab in the dark and guess 3 hours, 20 minutes.
Instagram, Anva Mata has a target time of 2:49:00. Hopeful one for him. I hope that's his words, not ours. One more from Strava. Jose Medellin looking to finish with a time of 3:10:00. And on Instagram, Hannah Ginsberg thinks she'll do it in 5:01:37.
Last couple, Katie Fedorenko is aiming for 3 hours, 2 minutes, and 21 seconds. I love the precision of some of these. And Katarina on Instagram reckons that 3 hours, 21 minutes, and 20 seconds is when they will come across the finish line.
Gretchen Pfeiffer on Instagram aiming for 3:21:26. And finally, John Miller is hoping to cross the finish line with 2:56:40. Let's see who out of those Abbott World Marathon Major Marathon Talk listeners has got closer in this special game of finish time forecast. Good luck to everyone taking part in next week's race. We'll keep an eye out for your finish times.
That is a wrap on another episode of Marathon Talk. If this was your first time listening, be sure to hit subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed the show, a 5-star review would be most welcomed.
You can follow us on social media to stay updated on all things Marathon Talk. Simply search Marathon Talk on Instagram and Facebook. You can join our Strava club by searching Marathon Talk in the clubs section. We'll be sharing exciting content, challenges, and more in the coming weeks, so don't miss out.
Thank you so much for listening. If you're running the Boston Marathon, good luck to you. I'll be there. So if you see me, please come up and say hi. I won't bite, I promise. We'll be back in our next episode with all news coming straight out of Boston, fresh off the press, plus a preview of the TCS London Marathon in what will be a very busy week for you, Martin.
Yeah. Very busy for you. And then for me, this week I'm hoping to be speaking to the House of Parliament Running Club, which will be both a privilege and fun. There's a whole load of MPs running this year's TCS London Marathon. Then I'll be at the TCS London Marathon Expo doing some talks on the main centre stage. So come along, say hello, stop at the main stand at the running show if you do see us I don't bite either. Until then, enjoy the run wherever it takes you.